Michel de Nostradamus, known in history as Nostradamus, was an extraordinary figure of the 16th century who was highly influential as a physician and astrologer. His remarkable work as a plague doctor not only brought him medical recognition, but also formed the basis for his later prophetic works. In 1555, he published his most important work, Les Prophéties, an extensive collection of prophecies written in coded, poetic form. Nostradamus' prophecies are characterized by their complex and often mysterious nature. In his verses, he described in detail various types of disasters, social upheavals, and historical events. What is particularly remarkable is that many of his predictions have subsequently been linked to actual historical events. For example, he is credited with predicting the devastating Great Fire of London that devastated the British capital in 1666. The rise of Adolf Hitler and the dark chapters of history associated with it are also said to have been encoded in his prophecies. More recently, even the COVID-19 pandemic has been linked to his predictions, underscoring the timeless relevance of his prophecies. His verses seem to have a remarkable ability to be applied to different historical contexts, which explains their continued popularity and interpretability. Nostradamus' prophetic texts are written in a complex, ambiguous language that often defies direct interpretation. He used a mixture of different languages, including French, Latin, Greek, and Provençal, and often made use of symbolic and allegorical expressions. This coded form of expression has helped his prophecies to be reinterpreted and related to current events over the centuries. Nostradamus left particularly interesting prophecies for the year 2024. According to his encrypted texts, humanity is facing a year marked by profound changes and significant challenges. However, he does not see these upheavals as exclusively negative, but also prophesies the emergence of new possibilities and opportunities that will give people hope. Particularly noteworthy is his prediction regarding the astrological constellations in 2024, which is considered the year of the dragon in the Chinese horoscope. According to his prophecies, 6 specific signs of the zodiac will experience extraordinary financial success and material prosperity during this period. This prediction fits into the long tradition of his astrological prophecies, which always took into account economic and material aspects of human life. The enduring fascination with Nostradamus' prophecies lies not only in their supposed accuracy, but also in the timeless quality of his visions. His texts reflect fundamental human hopes, fears, and expectations that are still relevant today. The poetic and mysterious nature of his prophecies invites constant reinterpretation, making them a cultural phenomenon that has endured through the centuries. The scientific and historical significance of Nostradamus goes far beyond his prophecies. As a doctor and scholar of his time, he embodied the Renaissance spirit that combined science, philosophy, and spiritual soch. His medical knowledge and his commitment during the plague show him to be a practically oriented healer, while his astrological and prophetic works reveal his contemplative and spiritual side. The methodology of his predictions, which is a combination of astrological calculations, historical knowledge, and intuitive wisdom, has influenced subsequent generations of astrologers and futurologists. His legacy lives on not only in his concrete prophecies, but also in the way he combined different traditions of knowledge and used them to interpret the future. His unique approach to interpreting the future, which combined both scientific and intuitive elements, was revolutionary for his time. Nostradamus developed the complex methodology that combined astronomical observations, mathematical calculations, and medical knowledge with traditional astrology and spiritual wisdom. This holistic approach set him apart from many of his contemporaries and makes his work remarkable to this day. The coded language he used in his prophecies was not only a stylistic device, but also a necessity of his time. As a scholar in the 16th century, he had to be careful not to come into conflict with the religious and political authorities. His quatrains, the 4-line stanzas of his prophecies, are therefore written in an artful mixture of several languages and symbols that allow for multiple interpretations. Also remarkable is his ability to recognize historical patterns and project them into the future. Nostradamus studied the history of various cultures and civilizations intensively and recognized recurring cycles in human development. These insights flowed into his prophecies and gave them a timeless quality that allows them to be applied to different historical contexts. His medical knowledge also played an important role in his prophetic work. As a plague doctor, he had direct contact with the major health challenges of his time. These experiences shaped his understanding of crises and their impact on society. His prophecies therefore often contain references to epidemics and health disasters, which he described with astonishing precision. The astrological aspects of his work were particularly pronounced. Nostradamus understood astrology not only as a tool for predicting individual fates, but as a comprehensive system for analyzing global developments. He studied the movements of the planets and their influence on earthly events with scientific precision and linked these observations with his prophetic visions. His predictions for the year 2024 are particularly interesting because they touch on different levels of the human experience. He speaks of profound social changes, technological breakthroughs, and spiritual developments. Particularly noteworthy is his prediction of economic developments and the potential prosperity of certain zodiac signs during this period. The way Nostradamus connected different fields of knowledge was way ahead of his time. He practiced a form of interdisciplinary research that would not become common scientific practice until centuries later. His ability to combine medical knowledge, astronomical observations, historical analysis, and spiritual insights into a coherent whole makes him an early forerunner of modern holistic research approaches. In his prophecies, he also took into account the psychological dimension of human experience. Many of his predictions described not only external events, but also the emotional and psychological impact of these events on people. This profound psychological insight gives his prophecies an additional dimension of relevance. The timelessness of his methodology is also evident in the way he identified cycles and patterns in human history. His prophecies are often based on the realization that certain historical events repeat themselves in a similar form, albeit in different contexts. This cyclical view of history allows his predictions to be applied to different eras and situations. His work as a healer and prophet not only combined different fields of knowledge, but also created a new form of future research that included both analytical and intuitive elements. This holistic approach makes his prophecies relevant and interesting to people from all walks of life to this day. The methods of interpreting the future that he developed have had a significant influence on subsequent generations of researchers and fortune-tellers. His combination of scientific analysis and intuitive insight still forms the basis of many modern approaches to future research and trend analysis. His unique approach to future analysis has influenced not only traditional fortune-telling, but also modern scientific methods of future research. The synthesis of empirical observation and intuitive interpretation that he developed can be found in various contemporary approaches. Particularly remarkable is his ability to recognize complex relationships and present them in a form that remains relevant for centuries. The techniques used by Nostradamus to analyze historical patterns and project them into the future show astonishing parallels to modern methods of trend research. His detailed observation of social developments and their connection with astronomical constellations shows a remarkable similarity to today's systemic analysis approaches. In his prophetic texts, Nostradamus used a multi-layered symbolic language that allows his predictions to be applied to different historical contexts. This flexible interpretability of his prophecies makes them a timeless tool for future analysis. The symbols and metaphors he used often have universal meanings that can be understood across cultures. His medical knowledge also flowed into his prophetic work and enabled him to gain a deep understanding of the connections between social developments and health crises. This holistic view of health and social development can be found today in many modern approaches to health research. His ability to combine different areas of knowledge is particularly remarkable. His prophecies are not only based on astrological calculations, but also take historical, medical, and social factors into account. This interdisciplinary approach was far ahead of its time and corresponds to modern scientific approaches. The methodology he developed to analyze future developments is based on careful observation of cycles and patterns. His prophecies take into account astronomical constellations as well as historical events and social developments. This comprehensive analysis makes it possible to recognize complex relationships and predict future developments. Nostradamus left particularly interesting prophecies for the year 2024. His predictions for this year include both social upheavals and personal development opportunities. Particularly noteworthy are his prophecies regarding economic developments and the potential prosperity of certain zodiac signs. The coded language he used in his prophecies was not only a stylistic device, but also a necessity of his time. As a scholar in the 16th century, he had to be careful not to come into conflict with the religious and political authorities. This coded form of his prophecies still allows new interpretations and explanations to be developed today. His ability to recognize historical patterns and project them into the future was based on a deep understanding of human history. He intensively studied the developments of different cultures and civilizations and recognized recurring cycles in human development. These insights flowed into his prophecies and gave them a timeless quality. The combination of scientific analysis and intuitive insight makes his prophecies particularly valuable for modern futurology. His methodology shows that a successful analysis of future developments must take into account both rational and intuitive elements. This holistic approach is still relevant today for the development of future scenarios. His prophetic texts are characterized by a remarkable precision in the description of future events. Many of his predictions have subsequently been linked to actual historical events. This accuracy of his prophecies has contributed to his methodology being studied and applied to this day. The accuracy of his predictions is particularly evident in the description of major historical events. His prophecies about wars, natural disasters, and social upheavals often show astonishing similarities with actual events. This accuracy has led to his methods being studied intensively even in modern times. What is particularly impressive is the way in which his prophecies capture various aspects of historical events. He describes not only the events themselves, but also their impact on society and people's lives. This multidimensional perspective makes his predictions particularly valuable for understanding historical developments. The symbolic language he uses allows his prophecies to be applied to different historical contexts. His quatrains are formulated in such a way that they allow for multiple interpretations. This flexibility in interpretation has helped his prophecies to remain relevant over the centuries. His predictions for 2024 are of particular interest as they contain specific details about upcoming developments. He speaks of significant social changes, technological breakthroughs, and economic upheavals. His prophecies about the potential prosperity of certain zodiac signs during this period are particularly detailed. Nostradamus' methodology is based on a careful analysis of various factors. He took into account astronomical constellations, historical patterns, and social developments. This comprehensive approach enabled him to recognize complex relationships and make precise predictions. His prophetic texts are characterized by a remarkable level of detail. He describes not only general trends, but often also specific details of events. This precision in description makes his prophecies a valuable tool for analyzing historical and future developments. The accuracy of his predictions has also contributed to the development of new methods of future analysis. His combination of scientific observation and intuitive interpretation has inspired subsequent generations of researchers and fortune tellers. Many modern approaches to future research are based on similar principles. His ability to predict long-term developments is particularly remarkable. His prophecies span centuries and often describe events that lie far in the future. This long-term perspective makes his work particularly valuable for understanding historical developments. The methodology he developed for analyzing future events is based on a deep understanding of human history. He recognized recurring patterns and cycles in social development. These insights enabled him to make precise predictions about future developments. His prophecies also take into account the psychological dimension of historical events. He describes not only external events, but also their impact on human consciousness and the social psyche. This profound psychological insight gives his predictions an additional dimension of relevance. The precision of his prophecies is also evident in his description of technological developments. Many of his predictions about scientific and technological advances have been confirmed throughout history. This accuracy in describing future technologies is particularly remarkable when one considers the historical context of his time. His influence on modern futurology is undeniable. The methods of analysis and prediction he developed are still studied and developed today. His holistic approach to futurology contributed to the development of modern methods of trend research and future forecasting. His revolutionary methods have not only shaped traditional prophecy, but have also influenced modern scientific approaches to futurology. The way he combined different fields of knowledge can be found in many contemporary research methods. His holistic approach to historical, astronomical, and social developments was far ahead of his time. The synthesis of empirical observation and intuitive interpretation that he developed is used today in various areas of future research. Modern trend researchers and future analysts often use similar principles to those developed by Nostradamus in the 16th century. His methodology of pattern recognition and trend analysis has proven to be astonishingly timeless. What is particularly remarkable is his ability to recognize complex relationships and communicate them in an understandable way. His coded prophecies, often written in the form of quatrains, allow for multiple interpretations and applications to different historical contexts. This flexibility in interpretation makes his predictions still relevant today. His analytical methods are based on careful observation of cycles and recurring patterns in history. This systematic approach to future analysis is reflected in many modern methods of trend research. The combination of historical analysis and forward-looking projection has proven to be particularly effective. The interdisciplinary approach to future research that he developed is more relevant today than ever before. At a time when complex global challenges require holistic solutions, his methodology is proving to be particularly valuable. The integration of various areas of knowledge in the analysis of future developments has become a fundamental principle of modern future research. His influence is also evident in the way future scenarios are developed today. Taking into account different factors and analyzing their interactions are basic principles that can already be found in his prophecies. His methodology of systematic analysis and interpretation has had a significant influence on the development of modern scenario techniques. The precision of his predictions has contributed to his methods being studied and developed to this day. Many of his prophecies have been confirmed with astonishing accuracy, which has further increased interest in his methodology. His ability to predict long-term developments makes him an important role model for modern futurologists. His approach to analyzing future developments is based on a deep understanding of human nature and social dynamics. This psychological dimension of his work is also reflected in modern approaches to futures research. Taking human behavior and social trends into account has become an important aspect of future analysis. His methods appear particularly relevant in times of rapid technological and social change. His ability to predict complex developments and describe their impact on society makes his work a valuable resource for understanding current transformation processes. The principles of future analysis that he developed are now used in various areas, from economic forecasting to social trend research. His holistic approach and consideration of various influencing factors have proven to be effective methods of future research. His influence on modern science is also reflected in the increasing importance of interdisciplinary research approaches. The integration of different areas of knowledge and the analysis of their interactions, as already practiced by Nostradamus, are central principles of scientific work today. The relevance of his methodology is particularly evident in the way complex global challenges are analyzed today. His holistic approach to analyzing future developments corresponds to the modern understanding of systemic thinking and networked analysis. His holistic view of the future is particularly evident in the way he linked different levels of reality. He understood that global developments cannot be viewed in isolation, but are part of a complex network of interactions. This insight is reflected in his detailed prophecies, which often capture several dimensions of a development simultaneously. The methodology he developed for analyzing complex systems is based on the realization that all events are interconnected. He looked not only at individual events, but also at their effects on various areas of society. This systemic approach enabled him to recognize profound connections and make precise predictions. His ability to recognize and describe the interconnectedness of various events is particularly remarkable. In his prophecies, he took into account not only obvious connections, but also subtle connections between seemingly independent developments. This ability for interconnected analysis makes his methodology particularly valuable for understanding complex global challenges. His analytical methods are based on a deep understanding of the interactions between different social systems. He recognized that political, economic, and social developments are closely interwoven and influence each other. This insight is reflected in the complexity of his prophecies. The systematic approach he developed makes it possible to gain new insights from his prophecies even today. His predictions are often formulated in such a way that they allow for different levels of interpretation and are applicable to different historical contexts. This flexibility in interpretation makes his prophecies a valuable tool for analyzing current developments. His ability to recognize and describe complex relationships is particularly evident in his predictions for the year 2024. He describes not only individual events, but also their impact on various areas of society. This multidimensional perspective enables a deeper understanding of future developments. The precision of his networked analysis is particularly evident in the description of social transformation processes. He recognized that changes in one area often have far-reaching effects on other areas. This insight is reflected in the complexity of his prophecies. His systemic approach to future analysis is based on careful observation of historical patterns and their interactions. He understood that history does not develop linearly, but in complex cycles and patterns. This insight enabled him to predict long-term developments. The methodology he developed for analyzing network systems can also be found in modern approaches to future research. His ability to integrate different areas of knowledge and analyze their interactions corresponds to today's understanding of systemic thinking. His ability to grasp the psychological and social dimensions of societal developments is particularly impressive. He understood that changes do not only take place on a material level, but also have profound effects on human consciousness and the social psyche. His prophecies also take into account the spiritual dimension of human development. He recognized that social transformation processes are often accompanied by profound spiritual changes. This holistic approach makes his prophecies particularly valuable for understanding current developments. The relevance of his systemic analysis method is particularly evident in the way global challenges are tackled today. His holistic approach to the analysis of complex systems corresponds to the modern understanding of sustainable development and systemic transformation. His visionary view of transformation processes shows a remarkable understanding of sustainable development long before the term was coined. In his prophecies, he often describes how changes in one area of society can have far-reaching effects on other areas. This holistic view corresponds to modern concepts of sustainability. The methodology he developed for analyzing systemic transformations is based on a deep understanding of the interactions between people, society, and the environment. As early as the 16th century, he recognized that human actions have long-term consequences for the natural environment. His prophecies often contain warnings about the consequences of unsustainable use of natural resources. His ability to grasp the various dimensions of sustainable development is particularly remarkable. In his predictions, he takes into account not only ecological, but also social, economic, and cultural aspects of transformation processes. This multidimensional perspective makes his prophecies particularly relevant for current sustainability discussions. His analysis of systemic transformation shows a deep understanding of the complexity of social change. In his prophecies, he often describes how different factors must work together to enable sustainable change. This systemic perspective is reflected in modern theories of change. The concepts he developed to analyze long-term developments are based on the realization that sustainable transformation takes time. In his prophecies, he often describes gradual change processes that extend over longer periods of time. This long-term perspective corresponds to today's understanding of sustainable development. His ability to grasp the psychological and social dimensions of transformation processes is particularly impressive. He understood that sustainable change requires not only technical or political solutions, but also a profound change in consciousness. This insight is reflected in the complexity of his prophecies. The precision of his analyses is particularly evident in his description of crisis situations and how they are overcome. He recognized that crises can often be catalysts for systemic transformations. This insight is particularly relevant for understanding current global challenges. His systemic approach to the analysis of transformation processes is based on a deep understanding of historical patterns. He recognized recurring cycles in social development and their significance for sustainable change. This cyclical perspective enables a better understanding of current transformation processes. His prophecies for the year 2024, in which he describes important aspects of systemic transformation, appear particularly relevant. He speaks of profound changes in various areas of society and their impact on sustainable development. His predictions offer important insights into current transformation processes. The methodology he developed for analyzing complex systems is reflected in modern approaches to sustainability research. His ability to integrate different areas of knowledge and analyze their interactions corresponds to today's understanding of systemic transformation. His prophecies also take into account the cultural dimension of sustainable development. He recognized that successful transformation processes require a change in cultural values and norms. This cultural perspective makes his analyses particularly valuable for understanding current challenges. The relevance of his systemic analysis method is particularly evident in the way global sustainability goals are being addressed today. His holistic approach to the analysis of complex systems corresponds to the modern understanding of sustainable development and systemic transformation. His ability to grasp the spiritual dimension of transformation processes is particularly remarkable. He understood that sustainable change also requires spiritual transformation. This holistic perspective makes his prophecies particularly relevant to current discussions on sustainable development.